live episode of La Combo. Not that we're going to be worried about that.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Lots for us to talk about. For those of you that may not know you, you're the VP of Multicultural Marketing at Warner Brothers Studios, right? Or Warner Brothers Pictures. Sorry, Warner Brothers Pictures. So obviously film, storytelling, movies is something that you are passionate about, something that you think about every single day. What was the first film that really caught your imagination?
Honestly, Scream, the horror movie Scream.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I was a big consumer of movies, obviously, and TV. But Scream was the first movie that I had like a visceral experience watching because of the scares and I love horror so much. And the launch, Scream basically relaunched horror in the 90s, and there was such a huge influx of horror after that.
Right.
And that kind of like teen horror slasher genre. And Scream was the movie, like I think my mom thought I was a crazy person because I would watch it over and over again.
Wow.
I would go to sleep watching Scream. And my mom was like, "Oh no, who am I raising? What is this?"
It's so funny because you're right. That was a little bit of a relaunch because you kind of had this generation before all the slasher films. There's probably
horror had gone.
Yeah, they had gone pretty terrible, right? Like you have Friday the 13th. You had Halloween, which I love the first two. I think that were really good, and then they kind of go sideways. And it's always the same little formula. So seeing that kind of come to life, really interesting. I think for me, honestly, when on the horror kind of category, and I'm older than you, so it'll be an older film, but the one that really just messed with me as a little kid was The Shining.
Yeah.
Like that was disturbing. Like I remember seeing that the first time and I was distraught as a little kid. I remember sitting there, and I think we watched it on television if I remember correctly. And I would sit there, I think I was sitting next to my mom, literally covering my eyes half of the movie.
Like a true Latino watching The Shining with your mom.
With your parents, right? Because this whole idea PG what? Whatever, we're going to watch the movie, right? I remember being and every time I put my hands in my face, it was just, I could only imagine the worst things happening, in the film. But that was one that, at least for me, was I remember even now whenever I watched it, it's so funny, right? How some of those things, it holds up really well. But it's funny how some of these things have a really core association with us, from the time we see it and how it kind of holds. But horror in general, you and I were talking about this in prepping for this conversation. When it comes to Latino, it's a really strong category. By the way, I was seeing a post that you put up.
Yeah.
The Conjuring. I'm sorry. The Conjuring Last Rites. 194 million worldwide, 84 million US. What was more interesting than that is the percentage of audiences, 39% Caucasian, 38% Latino. Huge, basically double.
Yes.
Huge over-index.
That's a huge over-index. A normal or an average film is 21, 22, 23% Latino.
More in line to the population.
Yeah, we over-index. Latinos over-index as a whole on movie going, on showing up opening weekend, on going to the movies and how often we go to the movies. And also, by the way, on the return to cinemas post-pandemic.
Yeah.
So we're over-indexing on that as well. But horror in particular is a huge genre for Latinos. And the Conjuring movies, all of them have over-indexed.
You have a whole universe, right?
Yeah, there's a ton of, the Annabelles, the Nuns, the Conjuring.
Sure.
And those movies, there's the faith element, right? It's a lot of, it's good versus evil. It's a lot of things that resonate strongly with Latino culture and have a huge audience. Yeah, 38% is massive. I think that's the highest percentage we've gotten on a Conjuring.
It's interesting that you mentioned faith as part of it, because I would say even from back in the day, The Exorcist, right? There was this huge element of, in this case, I think specific, if I remember correctly, specifically the Catholic faith being a core part of the storytelling of that. And do you think that's part of what drives this interest? Because I also am thinking maybe culturally, I remember growing up as a kid hearing all these stories, my grandparents, the stories about ghosts, people finding money, people getting, I feel like every Latino culture has their own version of whether it's cucuy, there was La Mano Peluda, there was all these versions, La Llorona, of course. What do you think of that? What is it about the culture that is so connected to or attracted to this kind of genre?
I think it's super interesting that our culture can live in two spaces, right? Like you have traditional religion, but then you have spirituality and curanderos and all of those elements, that these two things live simultaneously, which are actually shouldn't, but they do.
But they do.
And I think all of that is part of it. It's we had a movie in, I think it was like 2019. It was the Curse of La Llorona.
Right.
And it was
that
was our movie, and you know, that had some issues when we first launched, and because of representation and some things like that. The movie ended up being really successful, and we're actually doing a sequel to it that's gonna, it's not dated yet, but we're doing The Revenge of La Llorona. But that movie, you know, opening weekend, it was La Llorona.
Yeah.
It was 50+% opening weekend was Latino. Like, people showed up for that.
But I guess that makes sense because La Llorona being something that is so iconic to Latino culture.
And not just one. Right. Not just one country, right? All the countries.
Right. They all have their own version of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. There aren't that many that legends that I think speak to all the different countries of origin in that way.
I remember all the hoopla around the chupacabras. That was probably like in the early 2000s, maybe, when.
Yeah. That was like a Texas. I feel like that was a Texas thing.
Was it really?
I don't know. I think it might have been.
Texas thing. It could be. Yeah. But that was also a big one, right? And it's just like this. It's so interesting how you describe it that way. I think it's just a combination of faith, culture, like, and like spirituality in general that all kind of overlap with each other. I mean, it's so interesting because we just recently were having. I went to an event here at the Ford Theater, and it was a celebration of Day of the Dead, and the whole show was like half music performance, half play, half like live music, kind of dance, but it sort of brought in so many different aspects of our culture. It had a religious aspect. It had definitely a death, obviously themes tied to all of it. It had a Mesoamerican Aztec kind of element that is, you know, a big part of Day of the Dead, and I think it's all in combination, a reflection of who we are as people.
Well, and it's so interesting how comfortable we are with the dead and spirits and all that, right? Like, that's just part of it. Yeah. In a way that's not scary. Day of the Dead isn't scary.
It's not supposed to be scary. That's the thing. So that's probably one of the biggest misnomers, right? Day of the Dead is not supposed to be scary. It's a day of celebration. It's a day of recognition of honoring. Of honoring, and it's one that is, I think, universally relatable to people. But I would say that's probably the only downside to it being so tightly associated with Halloween, is that people sort of conflate them as being the same thing, and they're not. They're two very, very different kind of elements. But you guys have had a pretty solid run, right? I mean, 8 #1 openings. I was looking at the list: Minecraft, Sinners, F1, Superman, Final Destination 6, which, by the way, and I'd love you to talk a little bit about that, but at least with those, at least 3 of those are over 500 million, right? Superman, F1, Minecraft.
Yeah,
I'm not
global,
sure about
probably global.
Global, right? Yeah. Global. And quick plug, I think F1, like literally, huge film, great film. I've talked about this in this podcast before, that I became a huge fan. Actually, my whole family became super fans of F1 because of that film. So thank you. Now you give me something else to spend money on, so I appreciate that. But all great. I mean, that's a great run for you guys.
Yeah, it was a record-breaking year. Seven films in a row, opening to over $40 million in the U.S. Domestically was the first time any studio has ever done that. Right.
And you get to figure out how to connect that with multiculturalized. So tell me about that. Tell me a little bit more about what that means. Practically, what that means by film. How do you go about doing that?
Well, and each one of those, all 7 of those movies had huge multicultural numbers in different ways, right? Like Sinners, opening weekend was 49% Black audiences. That is huge. That's a giant over-index for that movie. And like,
did the Latinos do well for Sinners?
Latinos did well as well. Yeah, and well, they were lower opening weekend, but what happened is, as
like the word of mouth,
weekends continue on any movie, like usually Latinos will be higher opening weekend, and then everything else kind of balances out as weekend 2 and weekend 3 happens. And so that's kind of with Sinners, it was the Black audiences were super high, And then as the movie continued, Sinners was nuts because the second weekend of Sinners was only a 3% drop from the first weekend, which is unheard of. That's very, very rare for
that to happen. What do you think that is? Just great word of mouth, great reviews.
People loved it, and it became such a cultural moment in a movie to talk about that second weekend. For its 3% drop
that's huge.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to multicultural audiences, like our jobs are to basically, we work on every Warner Brothers movie, and we're trying to reach multicultural audiences. And that means that we work really closely with every division of the marketing department to make sure that we're having inclusive campaigns and the multiculturals are top of mind because everything is multicultural, but then also creating bespoke moments and original, special like executions and things for the individual audiences as well.
So maybe give me some examples, maybe like a Sinners versus like a Final Destination.
Well, I mean, for Final Destination, which is I think how we met, is I was talking about this partnership that we did with Adriana's Insurance.
Right.
Which
if you live in LA, or actually not just LA,
knows
but
who Adriana is, and that idea came about, and we were like, there's no way that they're gonna do this, right? Like, this is great. Like, that movie is about death,
right?
And like meeting your end,
very creative ways of finding death.
Yes. and Adriana's Insurance is like all about protection, right?
Sure.
And so, but we got on a call with them, and they were down, and she got on the call too. I remember she was in her car writing. She was like, "Oh my God, yeah, let's do it."
Wow. And
we basically created a whole campaign with Final Destination with Adriana's, where they used, their out of home is massive here in Los Angeles, and some of their other markets as well. But it was, all about, Adriana's has you covered until
your policy expires,
until you do.
Expire.
Yeah,
I remember seeing them.
Yeah, exactly.
It caught my attention so much with that tagline.
So we did the billboards, and we did spots that were running on air, and the whole thing. And she shot an original shoot. We loved working with those guys. Yeah, it was amazing.
With an idea like that is so out of the box, how does that even come to life? Like, how do you guys go about coming up with something like that? Because that feels like really, really unique. I mean, maybe it's been done in the past and I just didn't know, but.
No, I mean, with Final Destination in particular, when you have a movie like that, it was like, we can be out there with that movie, right? That movie was unapologetically wild. It's an R-rated movie. It's super gory. It's all about the fun kill. It's the kind of horror movie where it's tense, so you laugh. Right, it's a fun watch.
Right.
And so that campaign was super fun, and we were given the leeway to kind of do the craziest idea wins, basically.
Yeah.
And so that idea came from one of our agencies, like, one line in a proposal, and we were like, wait a minute. Hold on, wait. That would be awesome if we could do that.
Got it.
And then, it just went from there and got bigger and bigger.
As a general market strategy, or
no,
a multicultural?
That came from our side. Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how is that different from, let's say, like a Minecraft or a Superman when you think about, because I get your point, something like Final Destination, it's so almost ridiculous in its what it's trying to do, right? That's part of the fun of it.
And you want to have fun with it.
Yeah. Right, what about in cases where you have very valuable IP that people have sort of very clear defined view, or I think of something like Superman, or something like people have a very sort of specific setting, which I remember seeing some of the trades and some of the content that people are doing, and it's like, oh, it's either great or it's terrible because it's not like the last Superman, or it's great because it's more like the comic book, and you have these hardcore fans that are probably on either side of that. So how do you look at that? How do you leverage that to think about putting together a marketing strategy for a film like that?
Yeah, I mean, every film is different, right?
Yeah.
And of course, with Superman in particular, this was really the theatrical launch of the new DC universe that James Gunn is leading, and so the strategy was, we're relaunching DC, and so that movie was so, I mean, I know you're saying there was, there was some conversation about the movie, but that movie was really great.
Yeah.
And it was just a positive representation of a superhero, and for the plot to ultimately be just about being human and kind is really great. But, that movie had to be big. And so the stunts were big. The ideas were big. There was, we have a media team. The partnerships team was partnering. We had a ton of partners on Superman.
Yeah.
You want those movies to feel ubiquitous out in the world, and so I feel like Superman absolutely was. Our whole campaign was about look up, and we were seeing look up everywhere.
Yeah.
And on the Latino side, and for Latino audiences on Superman, the good news is like Superman's been around.
Right.
Everyone knows Superman, so you're not like reinventing the wheel on a campaign like that, because it kind of all works for everyone. And the good news is we had Hot Girl is Isabella Merced, who's a Latina actress.
Right. Yeah.
We had
mechanic, or I forget what they call it.
The engineer.
The engineer. Sorry. The engineer.
Yeah, exactly. So we had Gabby, who played her, and so we were able to do a bunch of publicity things with them and lean into them as well.
So that's helpful, obviously, in the case where you do have some of those.
Yeah, it's always great to have a little bit of something that we can do that's different.
When you and I were talking about this, you mentioned something which I thought was really interesting, is this idea of thinking about movie going as an event. Like, how do you create events? How do you create that real reason for coming out and watching something? And then I think part of it is like the lead up, right? And I was mentioning to you, I think one thing that I saw something like in the case of Minecraft, I was at, we were heading, I forgot where we were going, but we had to stop at the mall, which I'm blanking right now. It's the one in Studio City. Century City, yeah, Century City. And they had a massive activation there, which really is about bringing that world to life. How does that, tell me a little bit about how those things sort of come to life. How do you think about experiential as a part of creating those moments or creating that event, to your point, of getting people to come out?
So we have an amazing media team and our regional and field teams and events. So they lead the charge on kind of experiential activations like that. And the cool part about Minecraft is that they built out, the events team built out that world for the press junket.
Yeah.
And so they built that whole thing out, so it was used for interviews, it was a bunch of influencer content, it was all the things, right? But it's but when you have it, it's well, wait, should you bring that to the premiere? Should you bring that to, what are we going to do with all this stuff that's now created? So the cool part is then you get to take it from, press and influencers got to use this, to, wait, let's take it to Century City Mall and let consumers and moviegoers just actually show up and experience the world of Minecraft. I got to take my son to the junket just to walk around, and he was
blown away
in heaven. I'm in Minecraft right now.
Right, and
so
it feels like it
awesome.
ties really well to the strategy of the film, right? If the whole thing about bringing the world of Minecraft to life, then nothing like bringing it to actual life, right?
Yeah.
A version of it, at least people can get to interact with it.
Yeah, and we've done some really amazing experiential, as a company. The first one that I remember being the huge one was for the first It movie. They built the It house on Hollywood and Vine. And that was it was free, but it was ticketed. And it was basically a haunted house experience that was sold out for months. It was incredible. But to see something like that on that scale, build out, and you're just driving by and it's literally looks like the It house is there, is pretty cool.
Right, yeah. No, that makes a lot. I mean, that's what kind of catches your attention, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of having this IP sort of come to life.
Yeah, and it depends on the movie, right? Sometimes it makes more sense than others.
Right. Where does storytelling sort of fit into that? And how much are you even thinking about creating derivative storytelling to sort of drive attention, awareness around a film? Or is it all about, because there's so much effort focused on the actual film, so it's leverage as much as those assets?
I think you're mainly leveraging the film itself and the story. I think I don't know if you saw Weapons. I don't know. Are you a horror fan or no?
Listen, I get suckered into watching them, but it's not my preference. I would say that. I would say It was great.
I mean, that was broader than just a horror movie.
It is.
Yeah.
That's great. And also, I remember seeing the series. the original one, which now you go back and look at it like, it was terrible. But like, then it wasn't terrible. That was awesome.
It was really scary then.
It was really scary then.
We actually just watched it with my 7-year-old, which probably wasn't too appropriate.
But, I heard a great thing about Weapons, though.
Yes, Weapons was amazing. But the thing with that movie is there's a pretty big twist in the movie. But it also had a really great hook, which was, these kids that disappear in the middle of the night that are all part of one class. And so we were pretty adamant about not revealing the twist, which once people saw the movie, then it's been everywhere, and that character that we didn't really show too much it's going to be all over Halloween this year, 1,000%. You're gonna see, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, the glasses and the red hair.
I know what you're talking about. By the way, I still haven't any context to what it is or why,
but that,
so don't ruin it for me.
That character was not revealed before the movie came out. Because it was such a reveal in the movie, and the movie was a journey. When you were watching the film, it really takes you on a journey. And but we had such a good hook that you could really sell the movie on what the heck happened to these kids. And it was enough to sustain the campaign without having to reveal.
And that's an interesting element, right? When you think about selling the movie, and there's a lot of factors that come in. There is those that go the route of the festivals and getting a lot of press, and we were, talking about the Smashing Machine, the one with Dwayne Johnson, right? A lot of press interest and a lot of kudos around a film that is great, and then box office, not so hot, right? And maybe that over time, catches up. Sometimes, things.
We'll see what happens. Awards
a little while. And then there is even I was talking about Superman, right? So Superman, I remember seeing because I'm a big fan of all those superhero movies, and seeing all the back and forth before the movie came out, and then people really come out and watch the movie. How do you think about that whole dynamic between what the industry says, what reviews say, what even fans say, versus ultimately like adoption or what people ultimately do, which is actually come out and watch the film? How do you play on that? And obviously, when people say positive things, you want to like highlight that, and when they don't, you're like, we're just gonna ignore that one. But what's the internal sort of navigation of that that you guys are sort of managing?
All of that is every film is different, right? Every strategy is different, but all of that is very strategically planned. In terms of, when people actually see a movie, when people are allowed to talk about a movie, when when critics are allowed to post their sentiment on social versus their actual reviews. All of that is coordinated, and every movie's different. And and then when it comes to the fan stuff, that's become such a huge part of everything we do, because the difference is there used to be, and we still do this as well, but you would see a lot of commercials or things where it's people outside of a movie theater and professional camera talking to a microphone, tell me, what do you think about the movie? And they're, telling you. We do that sometimes, but also people are just doing that on their own. People are just picking up their phones after they walk out of a movie and just talking right into their phones. And so a lot of times we're just reaching out to them and saying, hey, I will tell you, loved what you said.
When I see a film that I like, or maybe that I didn't like, or I thought was like, I wonder what the internet is saying about them, I do the same thing. I'll go to TikTok, search it, and what are people actually talking about it, and how do they feel about it? Like,
and it is interesting, and how many people are actually looking at Rotten Tomatoes and looking at those numbers and using that to weigh their decisions.
Do you think that those like ratings and like Rotten Tomatoes have they lost a little bit of value in this sort of much more fragmented world? Like, how important are those at this point, do you think?
When we're 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, it's very important. When we're 30% on Rotten
Tomatoes,
it's
super important. That sounds right. Yeah, exactly. I like that. Yeah, but that's a big part of it, right? Is like this idea that regardless of how people may think about it, it's ultimately is like, what are people actually doing, right? Are they coming out? Are they watching the film? And those that are actually watching, the everyday consumer, what do they feel about it?
Yeah, like what are they saying about it?
I wanted to, I had asked you this before, but I love to get your thoughts on something like the Smash Machine with Dwayne Johnson. Obviously, a film that once again reviewed really well. I haven't watched it yet, but any insight from like, how do you think a film like that, why doesn't it find kind of its audience pretty early on? Or maybe it's just expectations because of him having done all of these massive films that are, you know, kind of popcorn kind of movies, and then this is not that, so therefore like a misalignment in the market of what they think a film like that will do.
I mean, I do think it's interesting when stuff like that happens and the press is so harsh on a movie when, you know, clearly the smashing.
I think it's Smashing Machine.
Smash Machine.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. I think that's what it's called.
Great.
Right. This is a UFC kind of, just to clarify what we're actually talking about.
But that's obviously a different kind of movie for The Rock. That's not the same as, and shouldn't have the same expectation as Jumanji. Yeah. You know, obviously I didn't work on that movie. I don't know how much that movie cost. I don't know, you know, like I don't know what what the real break-even point for that movie is, or any of that. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine they weren't super pumped about that opening weekend and the narrative around it.
Yeah, because you never know, right? Some of those films end up finding their audience after the fact, and it takes a little while.
Well, and one of the things that I think we had talked about as well was that when a movie goes to theatrical and has a full theatrical marketing campaign, that movie, regardless of whether it was a success theatrically or not, the data shows that it performs better in the subsequent windows than if it were to go straight to streaming. So it's like that movie could have a life, you know, once it hits home end, or once it that's PVOD, and then again on streaming as well. So you know, there's the windows are also important.
Right, and those windows have changed quite a bit, right? I mean, it used to be the case where all based on opening weekend, you can model out the entire thing. Opening weekend to then DVD to then pay-per-view to like it will kind of go through through the cycles. Now it feels like there's so many different paths that these films can take. In some cases, you know, there's a film I saw recently, I forgot who it was, that was going to be out on theatrical, and like a week later, I don't know if it was Netflix, or I forget now who it was, that was going to be released.
They're playing with the models a lot, like the windowing strategy, quite a bit, and some of the streamers make deals with filmmakers, where like Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein movie, that movie is going to be in theaters, but only for 2 weeks.
That's what I was thinking
of. Yeah. And so they, you know, that's because they have a filmmaker who values the theatrical experience, and he's like, if I'm going to make a movie at Netflix, I want it to be in movie theaters.
And I think it's a challenge for many studios that in dealing, especially with big talent, is like, hey, listen, if my movie doesn't go to theatrical release, it's like, it feels like a failure.
That's become more and more, to filmmakers, it's more and more important. And to, you know, you're going back to making things an event, that's part of the conversation as well. Like how much, I'm sure you see it all the time, but we're always selling, you got to see it on the big screen.
For sure.
You need to see it on the big screen. IMAX. Yeah. Like the premium formats have become super key to
3D,
to
IMAX,
marketing, all of it. Dolby, like, you know, each of the different formats, because there's an audience that really values the experience.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of which, I mean, there was so much talk for a while, and maybe there still is, about the death of theatrical. Yeah. Tell me about that. I mean, you guys are clearly, I mean, you guys are clearly having once again a pretty good run on a medium that has been called dead. You guys are like the Friday the 13th of mediums, right? Like every time you think you're dead, like the arm sticks out and like, no, we're not dead. And then there's a whole nother film and there's like a whole nother run.
I think what
do you think it is?
It was almost like not given the opportunity to actually build its way back, right? From COVID.
Yeah.
Because right when the industry was starting to come back and theatrical was starting to come back, we went right into the strikes. So then production stalled again. So I mean, for people to go to the movies, there have to be movies.
Sure.
So
yeah, that was not great timing. Yeah,
right. If there's not, we need to.
It was great for the platforms. For the OTT platforms, they were killing it.
But pre-COVID, there was a new movie every weekend, right? Or 2 to 3 movies every weekend. There was, and maybe that was too much. I'm not sure, but you know, we have to get back to consistent releases so that people can get back in the actual habit of movie going, and it's happening.
Yeah.
The data shows that movie going is pretty close to where it was pre-pandemic. What hasn't gotten back to pre-pandemic is the frequency of people going to the movies.
What is the frequency right now that people go to movies?
I actually don't know the average off the top of my head, but it depends on age, ethnicity. You know, like every demo is different. But that part hasn't caught up.
Yeah. What would you think is going to make the biggest difference, whether or not we do get like the catching up, if that continues? What do you think will be the biggest difference?
I think it's going to get there. I think it's going to be having product, right? Like actual movies in theaters. And I think like this, you know, our studio in particular, Warner Brothers, has had a big run of original films that's been really, really great. And I think it's ultimately, I think, going to be
bucking the trend, because
mix,
it feels like there's so many. Well, I guess it's a little bit of a mix, right? There's some IP that is obviously like Superman, but still, when you look at the number of films that you guys have done that are original, F1, Sinners, Minecraft, like that's a pretty even Weapons, right? Like those are all films that are done very well, original, and I think it's part of what's been missing is just not enough of that. I feel like we went to this remake and you know, part 3, part 4, part whatever of something a lot, and it was just that, which I'm guessing, you know, is part of the challenge.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately it's going to be a mix of both things, right? The IP is not going anywhere, and of course it would be crazy not to leverage the IP. And we have some awesome movies coming out next year that are both original and IP.
Any ones you can speak to?
Yeah. I mean, we have an adaptation of Wuthering Heights. Okay. That is, you know, Emerald Fennell directed. We have The Bride, that is like a Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, okay.
Really cool movie with directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Those are both original. But then we also have like Supergirl coming out.
That's right. Yeah, you teased it right in the film.
Yeah.
So
we got a mix of all of it. We have some good horror movies coming too.
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but as you think about sort of that marketing ecosystem, maybe let's talk a little more about on the fandom side of the equation, right? That's been a big area of growth, right? If you think about even things like recently, we got into watching White Lotus, right? And not every White Lotus, but I think I should say for the last season, every time at the end of the White Lotus episode, they were like, oh, and go to the podcast to get more. So you have this sort of secondary content that is out there that is very much, you know, and that was official or produced by them. But there is all this unofficial fandom content. What role is that playing for you guys as either, of course, a source of marketing, but what about also like a source of inspiration? Like, I think we talked about, like in the case of the Marvel movie, which one was it? It was the Doctor Strange, where they had the guy who was in the office.
Krasinski.
Yes, so he played Dr. Richards, right, from Fantastic Four. Like, that is fan casting. You know, it's like a short little role, but fan casted. That's what fans wanted, that, right? Like, how are you guys looking to interact with, engage with that broader fandom ecosystem?
I mean, by the way, as a fan, I loved that moment. Yeah. But I think when you look at social media and the genre sites, like it was a little bit mixed, because then people were disappointed that it was just this like fleeting cameo basically in that movie. So it's
I know.
It's kind of a mixed.
They dissect them really quickly. What the hell?
Yeah.
He got murdered immediately.
So I don't know, you know, if that did maybe what the intention was or not. But I mean, for us, the fandom is key, right? When you have the benefit of working on these big IP movies like Minecraft and the DC universe, you have to take the fans seriously and take care of the fans, because they're your core.
Right.
And so it all become, you know, there's a lot of, you know, what can we give them early? How can we super serve the fans? Like, how can we work with the influencers that the fans love and that are already in this world? And same thing with the press, you know, all the genre press and things like that, that we take care of those guys quite a bit. And while also, though, balancing, because you can't overserve the fans and then forget the broader strategy as well, because the fans aren't, you know, it's not enough to create the success.
Sure.
so you kind of have to like have that balance of the two things, but you always got to, we very much talk a lot about how we're super serving the fans.
When you guys are putting together a marketing strategy for IP or for a film that already has like some history, is there a lot of time being spent sort of looking at Reddit groups or what data of what people already either think about this IP, thoughts about it, or how to be able to like leverage some of that?
I mean, there's a lot of social listening that goes into that, and kind of from the marketing side. I don't know on the development side what those guys do, but on the marketing side, we pay a lot of attention to that, and if we release a trailer, what was the sentiment like? What did the fans think? What did all of that goes into how we move forward, because we're getting a lot of that. It can make a
really big difference, right? Who was the part? I'm thinking, who's a good example? Sonic. Remember the first Sonic character? How it was like really poorly received. I think it was in a trailer. Yeah. And literally, I forget who the studio was.
Sony.
Oh, Sony. That's right. Yeah. So Sony went and completely did the character over again.
Yeah. Wait, was that Sony or Paramount? No, I'm not sure.
I think it was Sony. I think you're right. It was Sony. But that's a huge investment that they had to do.
Yes.
To do that, but they listened to the fans and it paid off.
It paid off big time.
It paid off big time.
Now they're 3 movies in.
That's right.
Yeah.
But you look at the original character versus what it's like. What were you thinking? I think it was terrible. Or it did, right? Like it was the original was terrible.
We haven't had. We haven't had an experience like that, or I haven't had an experience like that yet, where they've gone back and kind of
where like marketing
fully blown up something and changed it and done something like that. But that, how cool was that?
That's super cool.
Yeah.
In terms of like creativity that you can apply to marketing, how are you guys looking at, maybe not just creativity, just in general, how are you guys looking at AI as to play a role in either the way you market, the content you can make available, leveraging technology to create maybe like fan-driven elements that people can utilize?
Look, I'm not an expert on AI and don't claim to be, but
don't worry about it. You can say whatever you want. No one's an expert.
But I think that there's interesting like marketing applications for AI. And
have you guys used any?
We have not in a broader scale like that. Back in like 2015, there was do you remember that Straight Outta Compton?
Sure.
Lens.
Yes.
Right.
And
so for years,
and everyone had to straight out of wherever they're from, right?
But for years, you would be in meeting, and I wasn't. That was, I think, Universal, and but you would hear like, we need a Straight Outta Compton moment, like we need a Straight Outta Compton lens. Like everyone was trying to recreate that because it was so viral.
Yes.
It was everywhere. Everybody did that. Everyone would say that, and then it never happened.
I think everyone loved that, except for people like me that were actually out of Compton.
Yeah.
So it was like, except for that small group of people, no one else.
But it didn't happen until Barbie.
Right.
When we did the Barbie generator, where it was like you could put yourself on the Barbie poster because we had all the different characters. And so that actually went viral in the same way I would say that the Straight Outta Compton, it was amazing. But going back to AI, I think there's marketing applications like that I think are super interesting, that don't impede on, film. There's a lot of controversy around AI when it comes to movie making and things like that. But I think for something where people can put themselves in a scene or in a movie or in an image in a cool way, there could be virality to that in a way that's super interesting.
I mean, I think the kings of this were early on was Snap with all of their filters, right? So they're very, I think, innovative, have been very innovative for a long time. And of course, then Meta sees it and they just do it at scale. And so they're like the R&D for Meta. But there are a lot of opportunities like that, I think. And even Meta now with their glasses, which once again Snap came out with them first, and then Meta just took what they're doing. But a lot of a lot of opportunities to think about how do you insert people into those universes. A little bit of you were talking about Minecraft, right? Like there is an opportunity to sort of create things, experiences that can be really interesting of having those universes come to life, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Besides that, is AI not being utilized too much right now currently?
I mean, there's a lot of conversations about it, but nothing is, there's a lot of conversations about it.
A lot of conversations.
It's a controversial topic.
It is, yeah. I mean, clearly is one that is going to have to be sort of further debated, right? And even figured out what's the best way to do it. I know there was the latest controversy was about the AI actress, right? That was announced. I forgot what was the studio that put it together. Which you know, when I saw that, I mean, I can see why.
What the execution of that was. I mean, they released that, and then I don't know
what
it was.
Maybe part of it is. I honestly think what it is. To me, it feels like very much a marketing stunt to show like the excellence in technology or what is possible rather than what is actionable, right? So it's less about, hey, we now have this AI actors that you can now use for any film. I don't think no one's going to act on that, but it's more like, look what we can do. Like if we can put that together, imagine what we could do with you.
Yes.
To me, when I see that though, there's like an element of that I just love seeing, like actors bringing roles to life where I know mentally that it's an actor. I know he's pretending, but I'm all in that moment.
Yeah, you buy in.
And there's something about that person like fully bringing a moment to life. You know, we're talking about F1 as one of the films that you guys did, and for the 2 hours and plus, you know, of seeing Brad Pitt in this role of the gritty driver who is just there for the love of racing, like, I'm all in. I'm all in, and I know he's an actor. I know that guy probably can't even drive the car, really. Like, but it doesn't matter.
The car. That was one of our marketing points.
It was an F2. It wasn't an F1. I saw the background of it. But my point is, like, I'm all in. I'm all in, and I think there's an aspect that is really beautiful about storytelling when you see that you can have these moments of magic that are happening, you know, in a film like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's really cool. Going back to getting engaging with Latino audiences, you know, you talked in the case of Superman having an actress, right, the engineer who's Latina. Obviously, when there is an actor or actress as part of the cast, you know, there is some, it sort of makes it maybe a little bit easier to activate the Latino audience. What do you think what works or doesn't in those cases, right? Because I think what was really interesting about that character is that, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember the actual film itself. I think it came across her being Latina without it being like over the top, without it being like, here comes the Latino moment, you know? So what's your sort of take on that, on how do you think about representation in film and when it does come out authentic, when it's not, you know, what's working for audiences?
By the way, with the engineer in particular, I asked, I think it was her rep, like, hey, did she just improv when she said mierda and whatever in the movie, or was that? And it was like, no, that was in the script. And I was like,
that's
great. Okay, that's awesome.
Oh,
yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, see, I remember there was something there where like, oh, she's clearly Latina, but it wasn't.
No, they didn't talk. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't part of the story, but it was.
It seemed authentic
because
to the character.
Talked in Spanish. Yeah. So that was cool. But
that's very cool.
Yeah, but you know, it's always, there's no right or wrong, right, in this. And I think, yes, when we have an actor that is Latino or Latina, that gives us a little bit more leeway to play with how we reach the audience and create content and do all of that. I think that there's a difference between when you have a supporting actor in a film that's Latino or a lead. I think that can make a difference in terms of the Latino audience response, right?
Right.
I think that a movie that is, you know, when you have a Blue Beetle or when you have a Father of the Bride or these movies that are predominantly Latino, I think that it can be really interesting the way people react to those films.
Right.
Particularly in the press, when, you know, it becomes the Latino movie, when strategically that's probably not what's best for the broader audience of the movie.
I would think so. I could see cases where that could actually limit the interest on the film.
Yeah, and
maybe tell me a little bit about the different, because I actually see those two films in very different light. Blue Beetle versus Father of the Bride.
Why? They were different in terms of Blue Beetle was theatrical. Father of the Bride was actually an HBO Max movie, but we worked on that movie because it was in like post-COVID interesting time. It was an interesting time.
So I'll give you my from audience fan standpoint, okay, and then you tell me whether I got it right or wrong. In the case of Blue Beetle, it definitely felt like this is a Latino superhero movie. Like it was packaged. To me, it felt packaged that way. The story felt that way. Everything about it felt like this is a Latino superhero movie, right?
But are you saying that based on marketing, or are you saying that based on watching the movie?
Oh, great question. I don't know, because as a consumer, you may not know the difference, right? Like, when I think of it, that's how I think of it. Now, it was a combination of how it was marketed. It was a combination. I saw the movie as well. I don't remember, to be honest.
Yeah.
Father of the Bride. Now, maybe I'm probably talking about it more of the film. I remember the film probably better than whatever the marketing campaign was for it. Where Father of the Bride, what I thought was like, this feels like an authentic American story that happens to include Latinos in it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like
no,
it was not. It was. I didn't see it the same way. It didn't seem like this is the they're in Miami. Of course, people are like they're like pretty high. That they speak a lot of Spanish, pretty high. But it didn't. It never came off to me as like this is the Latino Father of the Bride movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get that.
How did you guys think about the marketing for both of those?
I mean, honestly, for both of those, it was trying to not be labeled the Latino movie.
Right.
Not because we didn't want to be the Latino, but because it limits the success of the movie. Those movies were inherently Latino. You saw Gloria Estefan, you saw Adrià Arjona and Diego Boneta in Father of the Bride. They're Latino. When you look at the footage, you see it.
It's such an interesting balancing act, though, right? Because
but it's about you don't, like, we always overserve the Latino audience when we have a movie like that, right? Like we do all the things for that audience and go hard, but it's also about how is this just an entertaining movie? It's, how do we just sell this to broad audiences?
Right.
As just a superhero movie. It's not a Latino superhero movie. Like, Latino is not a genre of movie.
So from a marketing strategy for like a Blue Beetle, what was some of that attempt or strategy to like sell this as a superhero movie?
Well, when we launched the first trailer for Blue Beetle, we knew going into it that people were immediately gonna, like, our headlines were gonna be Latino superhero movie, right?
Don't say that. Right.
So we got in a room, like we gathered all the genre press and a bunch of the press and had a thing with the director and with Xolo to talk about the movie and show them the trailer beforehand and all the things.
Yeah.
And had them literally say, Latino's not a genre of movie. This is a literally say those words to the press, because the press, they're not doing it on purpose. They're not doing it as a negative. They're celebrating it as a positive, but without realizing the broader implications of something like that. That just, when all the mainstream headlines are Latino superhero, people just click, oh, that's not for me. It's not for me.
What do you think is different, or how did they get it right with Black Panther? Because you could make the same argument with them.
You could.
What do you think is different about that? Because I never felt that to be the Black superhero movie, even though it was the first real attempt at a Black superhero.
Yeah, but that movie became such a point of pride for the Black audience, right? Like Wakanda Forever was everywhere.
100%.
Oh shit, that was the mic.
Good for yourself. Yeah.
I was like, what is that?
Yes.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Am
I getting you fired up? Is that?
Yeah.
You're out of here.
I was like, wait, I thought it was the. Yeah, I'm leaving. Throw it down. No, but it was such a prideful moment, right? There was so much social around that.
Yeah.
I think Marvel was already like super established as well.
Yeah.
So the new Black Panther movie was exciting.
Right.
Like, the Black Panther movie was super exciting.
I also think he did a great job of introducing the character beforehand.
He had been in stuff beforehand. Yeah, he was in Civil War before that.
Great intros to the character. So by the time the film comes out, people are like, "Oh, that character's awesome," and is less in the context of now here comes.
You weren't launching an original with nothing before. He had already been seen in a movie that was very successful.
Right.
I also think that the Latino audience is different than the Black audience.
Sure.
The Black audiences really rally around content.
Yeah.
And you see it in quite a bit. Even like with Sinners as well. Like there was a lot of pride around that movie and that story. Whereas I think there's, we talk about it, I'm sure you guys talk about it as well, but Latinos are different. We're from different countries. It's a different, we don't necessarily, my family's Cuban, I'm not a good example because I grew up on the Mexican border, so I feel like I relate to both. But I think that a Cuban could see something that's like super Mexican or whatever and be like, oh no, that's Mexican. I'm Cuban.
Sure.
And I think that happens.
That is one of the
quite a
challenges
bit
for sure.
Yeah.
And you saw in other films, like I'm thinking like In the Heights, like where it, great, I think, story, obviously a point of pride for our community with the work that Lin-Manuel, sorry. I was calling him Luis now. Lin-Manuel Miranda, had done with the musical, but just did not get the kind of sort of pride, like this is ours, we're gonna.
Yeah.
So do you see it as maybe a little bit of I don't know if it's disconnect, but like a separation between representation and actually what Latinos want to see? Like,
I could talk about
we talk about that a lot, obviously representation and how important it is, and it is super important. At the same time, there's a little bit of disconnect between what Latinos will watch, regardless of whether or not.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could talk about In the Heights for a full hour. I
hate the nerve here.
I love that movie so much.
Yeah.
Like, I was a huge fan of the movie, and I loved working on that movie. But then it was really disappointing.
Yeah,
the result of that movie was disappointing, not just because of the box office, but there was backlash as well the opening weekend in terms of the Afro-Latino representation in the movie. There was a bit of a backlash from the community, which was really disappointing to go through. But
was that from the Afro-Latino community or from? Oh, got it.
Yeah. And so, but that movie in particular, right, was one. It was a musical. We got to remember it was a musical. Two,
musicals are tough.
Musicals are tough in general. Like a lot of musicals don't work. Two, it was during we were COVID, so we were day and date. We released that movie on HBO Max at the same time. And three, it was also we that's what you're getting at, is we very much leaned into Latino pride and Latino representation in the way we marketed that movie. That was part of it. And we did over-index Latino. It's just a smaller audience showed up.
Which is so interesting when you think about some of these films the way we way over-index. I would even argue that I saw a lot of people posting about that we have to go support this film.
Right, and I don't think that works.
I think it's the opposite. I think it makes me not want to go. Whenever you tell me someone I have to go to this in order for us to have more opportunity, I'm like, well, if the film was pretty good, then we wouldn't have to go.
You don't need to tell me to have to go. Yeah.
Right, like it actually works against,
It goes back to, we don't sell movies on representation. We don't sell movies on whether it's Latino or not. We're selling entertainment. And a movie has to look entertaining for people to go see it. And the representation and the Latino-ness and all of the things are flavor, and it's additive, but it's not why someone's buying a movie ticket. And one of the things, like, I think what we need more of is what we're kind of describing the way you felt about Father of the Bride, which is entertainment with culture, not about culture. And just really including Latino culture in movies that are just a horror movie, a rom-com, a superhero movie, and just having that, because
I think that
the
goes
Latino
back
sells in it.
To what makes it authentic, right? That's why that moment from The Engineer and Superman feels extremely authentic, because that is a thing that someone who's Latino would curse in Spanish. What happens? Without making any more moment than that. It wasn't anything else more than that. And I think that in its own, that nod is important. And it feels much more authentic. Carlos, we've been having, I think, a pretty interesting conversation. Before we wrap up, no. Before we wrap up, I want to kind of end it with two things. One is, obviously, you've had a really interesting. I love movies, right? So I feel a little jealous right now that you get to do this every single day, because I love talking about films. But and you had I think, interesting career. We talked about some of the stuff that you've done in the past. You were at Mundo Fox. You were at Wondery for a little bit on the podcast side. Then obviously with Warner Brothers. As someone that has had success in your career and has navigated these sort of waters, right, of career development, what is like a hard-learned lesson that you could share with folks that are maybe still coming up in their career, that are, that can learn from some stuff that you do?
It's interesting because we talked about the conversation you had with Beatriz last week, and that I watched, and you guys talked a lot about the kind of the humbleness of Latinos.
Sure.
And that
The
kind of,
infamous, you know,
the work hard, put your head down,
Yeah,
like, you know, that kind of thing. And I think that that's all great, but I think you also have to speak up and be assertive and chime in. And that's something that's been a learning for me, because I felt very, like throughout my career, just work. The work should speak for itself. Like, it's, you know, you just keep your head down, work. No. And it's not, you know, sometimes you got to put on the show. Right. And do the hard thing. Like, we talked about that. I'm not a huge fan of doing this.
Right.
You know, that's a learned skill to, you know, talk in a big room or like do those meetings but you have to do it. You have to push forward.
I agree with you. I think it was interesting this weekend. I was sharing with you that I got a chance to go to a gala for an organization called CALL, which is the Catholic Association of Latino Leaders, and we as Univision got an award, and I came out to accept the award. And you know, I had to share a couple of words for people, and you know, I hadn't written a speech, and everyone had a speech, so I had one of those moments, right? But afterwards, a bunch of people came up to me, and there was this 2 young women that came up to me, and I was getting pulled up directions, so I didn't get a chance to talk to them. And then at the end of the night, we were leaving, and I saw them again. I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you. And she was, this one particular young woman was telling me about some of the struggles she was having in terms of like finding her voice and being the only Latina in the space, and this idea of like working hard, but like, how do I navigate that? And I was trying to kind of help her a little with what you're describing. And part of it, I said, like, listen, when it comes to your career, you can't, like, you have to advocate for yourself. Like, you cannot have someone else do it for you. And I've even had that where people come to me and they're like, oh, like, what should be my career journey? Or like, what do you think is I'm like, no, time out. Like, your career journey is your career journey.
Right.
I should help you in that, but I kind of need the inverse. I need you to tell me what it is you want to do. Where do you want to go? And what can I do to sort of remove obstacles from your way? But I think that idea of advocating for yourself, and it does feel sometimes like the show and tell, which sucks, or merchandising yourself, which sometimes kind of sucks, but it's important to get that kind of work in progress.
But yeah, and also I think it's, not my whole career has been in this space, right? Like in the cultural space, or, you know I did some time at a Spanish language network, but, you know, being able to use your culture at work is something that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that with that, I've kind of become a more authentic person in the office in terms of bringing yourself to work, and because it's an asset, right? It's an asset to have a different perspective and to come from South Texas, or you know, the way I grew up, and kind of bring that into a marketing idea or a marketing plan or a strategy, and be able to use it. And so I think that's, you know, a learning is bring that to work, because, you know, like, the best ideas, like, you don't know where they're going to come from.
And for you, obviously, you lead multicultural marketing, but I would say for anyone in any role,
that's
bringing your full self
is
just more value comes with that, right?
Absolutely.
Then you're bringing your full experience into a conversation. All right, last one before we wrap up. So we like to do this thing, which is like predictions, right? So as you look out into the next 5-10 years, and maybe in film, if we can, or unless you have one already sort of picked out, but like, what's a trend, what's a prediction that you see coming that maybe is not an obvious one in this industry?
I mean,
what do you think?
Well, I think that we're going to see more. It's a lot of the trends that we've already talked about that I think are going to continue. I don't think this stuff's going away. I think we're going to see a lot more premium format, like that whole thing. Right now, there's a limited number of those screens, and I think that's just going to continue growing. Like, there's going to be more IMAX screens, more Dolby screens. Like, I think that's just going to continue. I also think that this, like, swing towards, like, more original films is going to continue.
I hope so, man.
Like, I think
love
it's
that.
there's always a balance, but I think, like, that swing to people taking bigger swings with these movies, I think that's gonna continue. And who knows what's gonna happen with this AI conversation? I don't know.
Because we'll find out. We'll come back and look at that one again. Well, Carlos, for those that want to maybe follow you or learn more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn would probably be the best place. Carlos Salcines.
All right.
LinkedIn.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Carlos.
Keep it there.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Look at that. 16 seconds left.